Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another podcast interview where we talk to industry leaders, disruptors, and people that are moving the industry forward. And today's interview is no exception. I'm pleased to have on the show for the first time Jake Wilker. He's the VP of Sales at CarWars. Jake, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here, Brian. Always love talking with you.
Well, I am so glad that you popped on. And a lot of times we've had Cassie on, and she's a familiar face, well-loved when she speaks and does mystery calls at our conferences. So I want to catch up with what's going on at CarWars. Let's start with the annual report on phone trends. And of course, we've gone through a very strange time. If we look at the last few years, we had normal, COVID, and then abnormal, approaching normal. Let's talk about the results at a very high level. What should dealers know about call trends over the last few years?
Yeah, I think at the highest level, they should know that they exist and that they have a way to measure them themselves. But I think the other aspect is knowing that we are getting back to normal. And so in the connect atmosphere where we still need to be connecting phone calls, I find it interesting that we're still struggling with that. And that's always a challenge to get dealers to pay attention to where their calls are coming from and who they're getting connected to. And then are they being handled well? And then on the outbound side, we want to make sure we're still following up with customers, which we're almost back to pre-COVID levels there. And the cool part, you mentioned, we've went from abnormal to kind of getting back to normal. In between 2019 and 2022, we've had an inventory shortage as well, which also changes buyer habits on when they're calling. So there's some interesting data for sure.
As more people shop online, I just know for myself, I am extremely impatient. I mean, I was just thinking the other day, I was like, I wish my computer could be faster. And, I'm on a 1 gigabyte fiber connection. I'm like 900 up and down. When I visit Europe, some of the hotels are 20 megabits per second. But I still want faster. How are the trends of consumer patience? I mean, typically hold times are a bad thing. You have phone trees that hope to route calls in the right direction. What can you tell me about today's consumer? Remember that CarWars is really a call analytics company at its heart, to helping dealers better manage their business. What would you tell dealers today about their customers who are calling in?
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. Your impatience on the internet, on your internet speed. Mine is, if I run out of something, I can just go on my phone and order it on Amazon, and it's there in like 6 hours. And so that has impacted people's ability to call into dealerships and be patient with a hold time more than ever. And I think right after COVID, we saw a little bit of patience with it, where we saw in 2019, the average hold time was 3 minutes, and that's actually stayed the same. However, within that whole 3 minutes, what we found is in 2019, 17% of customers hung up on hold. 2020, that held the same. And I think there was some sympathy because of staffing concerns where the dealership could say, we don't have enough people, like, please be patient with us. But the interesting part is it changed drastically in 2021, where we saw a jump to 28% of customers hung up on hold. And then last year, it jumped to 35% of customers hung up on hold when they've been on hold for 3 minutes or longer. And so that's a trend that I don't see slowing down, and I think really needs to be at the forefront of dealerships to make sure they're doing their best to connect a customer to someone that can help them. And I know you know it, Brian, but I just want to reiterate what I mean by connect. In the CarWars world, it's different than was the call answered. An answered rate is great, but that's, if the receptionist picks up and I want to talk to someone in sales, and I get blindly transferred over there and don't talk to anyone, that's not a connected call. So we want to make sure we're connecting someone that can actually help the customer.
I love this data because, dealers spend a tremendous amount of time on appearance. They walk the lot. Some dealers are very anal about aligning cars when they have cars. They're constantly looking at the coffee station to make sure it's clean. They're making sure that there's no trash around, that people are in a friendly environment. But I'm not sure if dealers check as frequently as they should this hold time metric. And I agree with you. During COVID, we felt bad for restaurants, even hotels that couldn't have staff. And, we were patient if the room wasn't made up properly day one, hoping day two. But today, I'm seeing some businesses not reinvest, not restaff. They're back to, full client demand, but they're not providing that service. And maybe that's what's happening here is that, hey, the consumer is expecting the dealer to be back on their feet, ready to go, and it's not happening. How does the CarWars platform help dealers identify these pain points or even quantify these pain points? We said that CarWars is the industry standard for call data analytics, but what would the dealer or general manager see that would alert them to this type of a problem?
Yeah, so when you're signed up with CarWars, a lot of the times you've made a phone routing switch recently, you're coming from a different provider, or you've just never paid attention to what's happening on your phone calls. And I think our connect metric in CRISP, we have CRISP, and it's the first part of our CRISP metric, is that you're going to get insights into what's happening, not just to the calls that are connecting, but to the calls that don't get connected and the reason behind that and where those are going. And the cool part about what we do is we're able to help the dealer make those changes in real time because we control our own telephony and where the calls are routing. So if you don't have a phone bridge and the calls are all going to one person to answer those phone calls, we can tell you, well, great, they picked up that one call, but 4 other people called, and here are those 4 calls, and we can alert you of those. And it seems to be, to me, the easiest metric to get a lift in your show rate because it's not even about changing habits within the dealership. A lot of the times, it's about a phone line that's not even ringing anywhere. And we can identify that and switch that up and help build a bridge, a press 1 for service, 2 for sales quickly for you and fix that right away.
When I think of call training, I think of a recent surprise visit I had in the Newark airport in the Polaris Lounge. As my wife and I were heading over to Italy, I ran into the legend, Mr. Stuker, who many, many years ago was a pioneer in call scripting, call training, overcoming objections. And he happens to be the world record holder for the most frequent flyer miles, over 22 million frequent flyer miles on United. And to see Tom Stuker there in the lounge, it was just a lot of fun. We caught up on things. But, there's some basic elements that it's not natural for people day after day to be consistent in how they handle phones. And we know that phones represent the highest level of commitment a consumer makes other than walking into the dealership. You quickly mentioned CRISP. This is the 5-part training regimen that has been very effective in helping dealers train their staff. Could you just review what those 5 letters represent and what type of training do you provide online for the always rotating staff in the dealership to make sure that their calls are always crisp?
Absolutely. I give all the credit to Cassie on this one. I think years back when I started at CarWars, we found that dealers were having a hard time. They knew the phones were important, but it's more complex than they want it to be. And having to read through a bunch of data made it really hard. And so CRISP helps simplify the phones into a few areas that you could identify where you were struggling and you could quickly make changes on those. And so C stands for connect, and that's what we just covered. And it's the idea of connecting to someone that can actually help the customer. That's really what matters, right? Is getting ear to ear with someone that can help you. Then the next one is request and invite. We've identified it's a connected call. We've identified it's a true service or sales opportunity. Now, all you have to do is ask. That's like you said, the customer's already made their biggest commitment to calling you, and their job is to eliminate you from the 3 other dealerships they're looking at. And they're hoping they can do that. All you have to do is ask for their business and ask for them to come in and test drive a vehicle or have their vehicle serviced. And I think this one is a layup that a lot of dealerships miss. So the second one's request and invite. Then we want to set a firm date and time. And why this one is important. Our data is shown when I say I'm the customer, if I said I can come in at sometime on Friday, that's a soft appointment. And the show rate for that is about 25%, compared to if a manager has called that customer back and confirmed, okay, Friday, does 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock work for you? Great. That show rate jumps to 75%. So it's such a low hanging fruit for a dealer to capitalize on. And just, you've done the hard part. You've already had them commit to coming in. Just book a firm date and time. And then that last one is pursue. And that's the outbound side of following up with your customers when you said you would, making those service follow-up calls and status calls so that they don't have to call in themselves, helps improve CSI and frees up the inbound line. So CRISP is a great way for you to get a pulse on the phones, but we've also found that dealers have a hard time staying on top of it on their own. And so CarWars does a great job with you have a consultant that comes alongside you to help you improve your metrics, but we also have CRISP certification now. And I'm really excited about this one where we're able to connect each individual agent to the system, and they're graded on an individual level. And if they're below a certain metric, you actually have to get certified and go through an online course on how to properly handle phone calls. And it's really immersive. And we've seen this be a key piece in helping, dealers in groups or even single tops that can get a grasp on what's happening on their phones and know that they're being handled well.
Well, I love the fact that year after year, this very simple but effective training has helped improve call outcomes for dealers that I work with all the time. Let's talk about a recent award that you won. This is the Driving Sales Top Rated Call Management Award. This is rated by dealers. This isn't an award given out by a magazine. This is a contest, really, of dealers sending in their votes into driving sales. What makes CarWars that different that year after year you've been winning this top rated call management platform award?
Yeah, this is a one I always feel really prideful on when we're even in the conversation, but really when we're winning the award. And why I'm so prideful about it is because our customers are saying they're seeing change and they're happy with the results. And so there is a lot of options out there, and a lot of companies do great work. And what I think really sets us apart is going that extra mile to analyze where they're struggling and actually help them go in and create that change. It's not, I always say the phrase, what's measured gets managed, right? And if you just give a bunch of data and don't do anything with it, we're not providing any value and the customer's not seeing anything out of it. And so we want to make sure they're seeing a rise in their connect rate. And so we put it in front of their faces, really obviously, that the top 15% of our dealers have a connect rate of 75%. They request and invite 65% of the time, and they have a set score of 40%. And so we want to drive dealers towards that. And like you said early on, it's always shocking when we first get plugged into a dealership. You'll see that the GM is very confident that connect score is going to be in the high 80s, 90s. And when they see that come in around 50 to 55%, it's a shell shock, similar to whenever Cassie does one of those mystery shop calls and they're raising their hand at the conference, all confident, call mine, and it's a nightmare process. There's something to having that Band-Aid ripped off, but then being guided on how to help improve it.
Yeah, it is hysterical. One other compliment I'd like to give CarWars is that you joined the Automotive Standards Council to support the call outcome specification for GA4. We're right around the corner. In July 2023, GA3 data will stop. Dealers will need to rely on GA4. And one of the things that always had haunted me from a marketing perspective is we had to count click to call, the action of clicking a button, as a conversion when we knew that 30% of those calls never were clicked to connect, let alone your definition of connecting, getting to the right person. The new ASC specification can be downloaded by going to the Automotive Standards Council.com. And this, for the first time, is going to bring the CarWars call analysis data back into GA4. This is an exciting time because dealers using CarWars will be able to have more accurate conversion outcomes by sales, service, and parts. How do you look at this opportunity to bring call outcome data into now GA for marketing optimization?
I think it's just such a great opportunity because we haven't had this before, right? It's been everyone making up their numbers essentially. And so I think this is such a cool opportunity to come in and standardize and have a process that we can point to and say, this is what we're striving towards. And I'm happy that CarWars is helping with that and that we'll be able to be a part of that change. And hopefully it gets dealers to come aboard. Now, when I started, I think we saw a lot more apathy in the call management realm. I think dealers were happy that their calls were recorded and that was good enough. Now, I think that's changed pretty dramatically over the last few years. And so now I think it's more about, well, what's the standard and where's it going? And so I think that's an important piece.
Yes, and dealers should make sure that their GA4 accounts are set up properly. You should be making sure all your vendor partners are supporting the Automotive Standards Council Specification 1.0, which means every click, swipe, or hover, and every chat, text, and call outcome are visualized and documented in GA4. This is a big, big opportunity for dealers. Before we close out our conversation, I always like to ask this question of our guests. If there was one thing you wanted dealers who are listening to today's podcast to remember about CarWars, what would it be?
It would be that there's a lot of opportunity, whether you're improving in the dealership, you're hitting great strides and hitting breaking numbers, or it's a tough time at the dealership. I think you need to know that this is an important thing to care. Whether you have CarWars or not, caring about what's happening on the phones goes beyond your CSI scores and goes beyond leads that are being generated. This is where customers get their first impression of your dealership. And you, like you said earlier, I love that, Brian, that like image is a big deal to dealerships. And I think this image is sometimes looked at after they've built a new showroom floor or built a beautiful website. And you've done all that. Now you just got to finish it and give a great customer experience on the phone. And I all I want to do is help the dealerships get there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I will second that encouragement. That I know that dealers who are using CarWars really remark about the customer service, the support, and the innovations that come through the company. And I'm looking forward to having you at the upcoming Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in Austin. That's May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And we're going to talk about the Google Analytics specification and how CarWars is supporting that. We're going to be talking about bringing call data into new ways to optimize the customer experience. And thank you for being participant in dealer education and supporting dealer education, because together we need to make sure that the phone data is properly connected with the customer record. And we need to make sure that the phone data is properly connected to our marketing outcomes, because the phone is the most important communication tool, the highest link to a sale, and of course, what dealers value the most. So I'm really excited to host your team in May. Is there one thing that you're looking forward to on your roadmap this year, that looking out, you're excited to see CarWars move into as a product platform or reporting?
Yeah, I think there's a couple areas that jump out at us. And I think the continued integration with our partnership with GoTo Connect and being able to connect our data with a phone system has been really exciting, because it helps eliminate some of those hurdles of tracking lines or getting minutes or anything like that, where now we're able to seamlessly integrate with your phone system is a great jump. And I think where a lot of phone conversion is going. But I also think the emphasis on fixed ops and service has been a big push for us for over the past year. And where we're going with being able to tell a dealer specifically, was price discussed? Was there a good conversation on that when price was discussed? And getting granular on the service side is really exciting for me, because I think that's a big opportunity for the overall industry to improve on.
Yeah, the practical applications of AI and machine learning to process call transcripts, to identify problems, escalate problems in real time. Man, that's so cool. And really gives dealers, in a sense, an angel looking over their shoulder when the ball gets dropped or an opportunity is missed. Someone effectively is tapping them on the shoulder and say, hey, here's an opportunity that got mishandled, jump on it. And I think dealers appreciate that, right? Absolutely.
I think there's a balance though, too, because I think if you end up having too many alerts it turns into noise, right? So I think if the more specialized we can get on this opportunity is really, really, really good. Like, sure, we want to nail them all, and we're going to help you drive improvement across that. But this is one you need to get back on the phone with, I think is really important, so that it doesn't become just another email or report that they get.
That is sage advice indeed. I want to thank you for joining me today. And more importantly, I want to thank everyone who is listening to today's interview, because honestly, your time is valuable. And I hope that you enjoyed Jake's insights into the latest call trends, the new opportunities that technology is offering dealers to improve their customer service and sales operations. More importantly, the future is a data-driven world, and phone data is going to really transform our modeling of our consumers, how often they touch our dealership, and what their current needs and concerns are, all surrounding the number one communication channel of our customers, the phone. If this is the first time you're listening to one of our podcasts, you should know that I interviewed dozens of industry leaders, innovators, and folks that are really moving the industry forward with better education and technology. So you can go to brianpash.libsyn, that's LIBSYN.com, to see all the episodes, or just search for the Brian Pash Podcast on the Apple Podcast channel or Google Play, SoundCloud, or any popular podcasting platform. And more importantly, I look forward to seeing dealers at the 2023 Digital Marketing Strategies Conference in Austin, Texas, May 21, 22, 23. And CarWars customers have a special discount code. You can contact Jake and he'll give it to you. That will save money on your tickets to DMSC. Jake, once again, thank you for being on the show. And I want to thank everyone for investing in your personal education to drive our industry forward. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time on another podcast interview.